Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, because this will also be live here, not only in our EST, that's Eastern US, but you might be watching this on a replay. So I want to make sure it's good evening, good night, and good morning. I am Winnie Benjamin, and I am the sustainable consultant at Stewardship Masters International. Business performance advisory is my focus, and even a deeper dive focus, it's mostly legacy development for those businesses that desire legacy continuity. I don't want to talk a lot about me because it's not about me today. It's about my excitement that I'm trying to hold into constraints. Because here in the studio with me is a person that I've been working with for over a year in a discussion that was just off the charts. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. I do have clients who are medical practitioners, and sad to say, I have lost two of them for closing their practices because they have not been compensated adequately. And when I came across Dr. Baawuah, and he started sharing with me about the complexity of this new program that has come down the I can't even speak properly because I'm still so upset in a way, but I'm supposed to be calm. So I'm going to be calm, okay? But this complexity in understanding the Medicare Risk Advantage, the Risk Advantage program. Adjustment program, yes. It is causing challenges even for the revenue cycle practitioners, those vendors who are even assisting the physicians on their billables so that they could be compensated adequately. They are struggling with the complexity of this problem. Well, what do you know? Lo and behold, here comes the amazing, the awesome Dr. Prince Baawuah. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and why I'm so excited. Dr. Baawuah holds a doctorate in public health from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, with a focus in health informatics and a Master of Public Health from the University of Michigan. Dr. Baawuah combines academic excellence with practical expertise, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of the Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment Operation Policy Landscape. You can see that's a mouthful, right? At the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, in parentheses, we could say CMS, Dr. Baawuah distinguished himself as a leading authority in risk adjustment and encounter data policy operations and analytics. His 7+ years tenure at CMS was marked by a significant contribution to the development and operationalization of Medicare Advantage encounter data for risk adjustment payments. Notably, his work in leading the Encounter Data Dashboard of Analytics, EDDA, project was groundbreaking, earning the prestigious Fed Health IT Innovation Award in 2018 and a CMS Honors Innovative Award in 2020. These accomplishments underscore his skill in creating analytic frameworks that enhance data accuracy and utility for risk adjustment purposes. Dr. Prince Baawuah, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Winnie. And thank you for the opportunity to spend this time this afternoon with you and to share more on some of the exciting things that we are doing, and not even about ourselves, but how we can be of help to our providers and the practitioners that are in the risk adjustment space. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to talk to you this afternoon.
Yes, because you know you should be so tired of me questioning you and questioning you. And I said it's so unfair for me to take all this information by myself and not share it with my population, which is why I have you here with my
I
LinkedIn
appreciate
family.
you. I appreciate you.
Now, Dr. Baawuah, And let me talk to our audience for a moment. We are on here for 30 minutes, so I don't want to do a lot of talking. I might just ask a few questions, but we're hopefully asking you to write in the chat on LinkedIn what your questions are. We are looking at another screen to see your questions. And of course, at the end, I'm going to have Dr. Baawuah share how you can get in contact with him and where you can see his weekly programs to learn more about this amazing program that he has made very simple. Dr. Baawuah, what did you see was the major problem when you looked into the landscape of the plans, the Medicare Advantage plans to be specific, the way the practitioners were being compensated, and when you have or vendors also being stuck in the middle of the complexity for billing, what did you see that actually inspired you to say, you know what, I'm going for the gusto. I've got to come out into the marketplace and do something. Can you tell me more about that, sir?
Thank you so much, Winnie. One of the key things that I think, as you talk to people in the industry on Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment, is a keyword you've been using it over and over. It's complex. It's complex. It's complex. And I'm not here to downplay the complexity of this. There are the complexity stems from the. It's been a long program, so the documentation around that have been is longitudinal, like over years. Understanding them, even if you navigate them, is very difficult. And just talking from that perspective. So the complexity. I started as a new grad 7 years ago at CMS with a recent graduate program. It was complex for me, so I understand that. But the complexity, through learning through the complexity, I became more knowledgeable about this. And the inspiration is, how do I, with the knowledge I have, with either from professionally, from my academics in health informatics, how best do I put things together so that we make everyone in this space a master, like master in not just having a master's in public health, but you have mastery in Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment. And that is what inspired me, starting on with the Hughes Academy, being inspired by how Khan Academy changed my life. Have a Hughes Academy where there are few free videos on YouTube and resources for people that are in this space, either from the provider side, from the plan side, or the practitioners that are helping them in that space to better understand and make everyone a team player, a game changer in this space. And that was the inspiration. It's not about me. How do we make everyone a game changer in this space? And that is the inspiration from there.
And I just find that is quite generous because we need proper performance in the marketplace. Can you imagine me walking into my client's office
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on business performance, the revenue? I'm looking at the revenue and I'm looking at how the revenue comes in, and
Mm-hmm.
how the operators, the front of the house in these medical offices, how are they interacting? So I'm measuring so many things across the board.
Yeah.
And then I come to a gridlock when speaking with the provider who is downright upset. I have one provider, I don't know if she's on today, had to close her pediatric. I mean, I don't know the details. Maybe you might have to come in, but I just couldn't understand how these pediatricians are saying they had to close their practice because of how they were reimbursed. $9. And I don't know. I know that's probably not coming from Medicare, but the compensation has been ridiculous. And one of the things you said to me is it's about transparency.
Yeah.
What you are here to do is not to create any conflict between the services or the plans and the practitioners, is just so that everybody is on a level playing field,
Mm-hmm.
understanding how the game is played,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it's how the CMS compensates the plans and how the plans compensates the
The provider.
revenue cycle group, the vendors, and of course the providers. And so when they get this compensation, they need to see or understand how they're, if they need to challenge it because they happen to know what has to be done. Now, one of the questions you said, your
Mhm.
statement you said to me was they had to, how the CMS program, the CMS program works is that they have a line of questions that providers must answer in order for them to be compensated properly, right? Risks, the level of risk, whether it's low, medium, or high, and they
Mhm.
must answer that effectively and submit it to the plans who then submit it to CMS. And then CMS now sends the money to the plans, and then the plans supposed to adequately and trustworthily compensate the provider. Now, some plans, we're not going to say they do this intentionally. They may not understand some things and may somehow shortchange the compensation. Can you tell us more about how the the billing division
Uh-huh.
and the providers should challenge, or should they challenge that? What should they know in order to make sure that the flow, what they did and they submit was accurate? And then
Mhm.
how does it come back down so that everybody is on the same
Level playing field.
level playing field?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I think ultimately, even with what the providers or the plans or the vendors, technology vendors, or even CMS or even the government itself, either from audit perspective, it's all about the patient, right? The Medicare beneficiary. How does plans get the necessary compensation and pass it on to the providers and provider necessary resources to take care of the patient? So ultimately, it's all about the patient care, the Medicare beneficiaries, our seniors getting the necessary care. And as you said, like revenue and the money is part of the flow of funds is part of this because resources, money play a great level of getting the necessary resources that you need. So in that case, just to orient more on this, like Miss Winnie, you go, you see your provider, the provider take the data, provide the care, provider has to send data to the plan has to send data to CMS in a timely fashion, in accuracy, and that's one of the areas that at Hughes Academy we are making sure that it is fair, is accurate, is complete, and timely. We call it a fact. So then, as it gets to CMS, CMS does its thing and then passes it on to processes the data that came in, process it and make a lump sum of money to the plans based on the risk that the beneficiary has that was reported all through the process, and then back to the plan and back to the provider in that fashion. Um, Time is of essence here because the risk adjustment has deadlines.
Wow.
So knowing when data is processed is very, very important so that you get the necessary payment. I can't even imagine doing a work and waiting for a year, past a year to be compensated accurately for the work that we all don't get paid that way in our paycheck. But CMS makes monthly payments, but depending on the data that came in and what time frame it fell into, that affects what payments the plan had and what affects the payment probably be passed on to the provider and vice versa. So knowing the timeline is very accurate, is very, very important in this process. Not only knowing the timeline, you also have to know what data needs to be submitted, right? The policies are talking about complete and accurate data. So as a provider working with your revenue cycle team or your billing, whatever your team is, you want to know what that complete and accurate data is so that you are able to pass it on to the plan it on time and correctly for the plan to pull it together and send to CMS is very, very important. And then reconciling reports across the board. So any break in these kind of cycles, it has an effect. And
A
also even
serious effect, I should
serious
say.
effect, right?
Serious.
And not even for your compensation alone, as a provider and your team, but now there are audits that are coming to play, right? There are audit processes that come into play with OIG, and there are a lot of reports that the OIG has outside online that people can look at. But it shows the important because there's fraud, waste, and abuse. So you may is it intentional? Is it unintentional? You have to know these. And one of the things that Hughes Academy is really set up and what we are intending to achieve is how do people work from a side of intelligence instead of just knowledge, right? Or just having facts. So with all the tools that we are creating, all the YouTube videos that we are creating, how do we simplify this complexity in such a way that we all have an understanding? Just imagine you have game changers. Everyone on board is a game changer, from your receptionist to the coding to the provider to the plan. They are all game changers, have the same level of understanding, and even using that to help curbing fraud, waste, and abuse for the benefit of the beneficiary. Just imagine how much impact this will be to our health system. And that is one of the areas that the Hughes Academy, we are set up to do, that we are working and inspired to make sure that everybody gets to be a master in Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment so that they can execute for the benefit of the patient.
So well said. And now here I have two main reasons.
Okay.
Personally, as a patient, I want my provider to be happy. Now, I'm blessed with fine health, but my main concern would be what happens if I'm not at the low risk and not in the medium, but I'm a high risk case,
Mm-hmm.
which you explained to me that if the provider submits proper and accurate documentation, the
Mm-hmm.
compensation that they will send to the plan for a high risk person will be way higher than the compensation they're going to get for the low risk. Am I
That is correct, because the purpose of risk adjustment is to help with fairness, and that
okay?
is a part of the fair, accurate, complete, and timely payment, right? So it's for fairness, because you don't want providers to be cherry picking. And I'm making this very simple for the audience. If we are all being paid the same amount, then if a patient is very sick, then for the same amount of money, the sicker a patient is, the more likely resources that they may need to take care of, provider may need to take care of the patient. So the purpose of risk adjustment is, one of them is for fairness.
Yes.
So high people, patients that are very sick, have a lot of conditions. As a plan, you will get a lot of resources or a lot of money in order to compensate your provider, so that you can take care of the patient, compared to someone who is not extremely sick. So there is some level of fairness, and it makes sense. That's the goal of one of the goals of risk adjustment tool. However, to get that fairness, for fair payment for your people, just imagine someone is a very high risk
Mm.
and they are using a lot of resources, but as a provider, you are not, or within your team, you are not able to capture the right data. Even if you capture it correctly, you're not able to submit it on time, right? So the person is using a lot of services, but you don't have the necessary compensation. Immediately, it's going to drain your practice.
Well,
Definitely.
wait. It's not just during the pack for the. I mean, I don't want my provider not to be upset, but he's and she is. They are human, right? So, what do you think can happen if I'm the high risk person? Would they be happy to see Winnie coming in? Oh, here goes another high risk person, and we're not even getting compensated. What would be their emotional attitude? I'm already not feeling well. Maybe I'm in a wheelchair, the whole 9 yards. What would be the emotional attitude from that human person not getting compensated? Do you see, from a patient standpoint, this transparency I need to know so I can ask my doctor, are you submitting your adjustments on time?
I think you,
Like
you
those
you
who
are
don't
putting in
understand.
like more of a patient advocate, making sure that patients are being advocate to make sure that risk adjustment data goes in well. So definitely, if you're high risk, and I'm talking from a human perspective, like high risk patient, and you're not getting the necessary resources to take care of the patient. Let's be real, like it's very difficult as a provider to all your team members, and uh, that it will be frustrating. But I don't think you went to medical school to be frustrated, unfortunately.
Because
So
you're going to snap at me, you're going to take it out on me.
it's gonna get, then to be, that is also gonna affect your quality scores, because
Yes.
the patient is probably gonna fill out some survey and say, when I went to this provider, I wasn't taking, I didn't receive the necessary score, care well. It's gonna now trickle into another area that I'm not what I want to talk more about, patient experience scores and quality scores, because I'm not the best expert in, but all of
Yes.
them work hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Having the necessary resources, provider you are happy, your staff is happy, your patient is happy, your risk adjustment is going well, your quality scores are going well. Ultimately, the patient gets happy. There's no fear for risk of audit, and you are happy. Like ultimately, you are happy. Your patient is happy. The plan you're working with is happy. They are getting the necessary data to CMS and back, and you're able to reconcile this. And having an insight, many times, what I see is like having an insight into these policies, and these are part of the tools that we are creating, or we've created. These policies is very helpful, because as you are looking at this now, you have the end in mind. And I
Yes.
learned that from the habits of the effective people, right? Have the end in mind. You know that you are collecting the data, and the data goes all the way to CMS and also back from CMS to you. So you have the end in mind, end to end. You don't have to know everything, definitely not, but at least you have that perspective. And that
Yes.
perspective helps you in how you deal with your staff, how your staff know, and how your staff interact with patients, how it's getting your fair, accurate, complete, and timely
Gotcha.
payments, and making sure all your staff members are game changers once they get to the field of display.
Okay, I know we are running short on time, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to find if we have any audience here that would like to ask some questions. Some had to drop off, came on, drop off, but we want to see if there are any comments. We're able to read your comments. Are there any questions here? Let's see. Uh, I don't see any from my side. Do you see any from your
I
side
do
as well?
not see from my side either.
So that's
So,
more for me because I got another question.
yeah.
So I'm also on the merger and acquisition team, right?
Okay.
For businesses that need to sell, and oftentimes you will have health facilities or even a medical practice. They decide, you know what, I'm throwing the towel in. I need to sell. I'm in practice for 25 years. I need to sell it.
Hmm.
And like you said, when the audits come up, there's an area of preparation for sale, which is known as due diligence.
Okay.
And that means our due diligence department will go in and we want to see how your cash is flowing.
Okay.
So we see all of these bills going out for payment. And we're looking to see the flow of it coming back in. And we're seeing that the practice is in a deep dive, but yet the doctor is giving, or whoever is selling the practice, giving us this information that this is how much revenue that is coming in. And they're doing it based on the billings that's going out,
Okay.
not focusing and giving the right numbers that the revenue coming in is not accurate to what's going out. So that means your practice is not being responsible, but you want to sell it. Now, this is where our risk adjustment group for to protect the buyer is to be absolutely sure how has this business been operating. That's the business performance side. How
Hmm.
have they been operating? And for the medical practice, more than anyone else, because of this challenge and the complexity and the lateness and the inaccuracies and all of that, makes it very challenging for practices to really sell at a profitable level. So I
Hmm.
just wanted to share that's the what I see. I know that's
What you've
not
been
your end
seeing.
because you don't have anything to do with that, but from our
From
end.
your perspective, yeah, but it's all intertwined. It's all
Mhm,
intertwined when it because as you get your practice ready to sell it,
mhm.
you are looking at how much revenue coming in and how much revenue spending that is coming in, and
Yes.
profitability of the practice as you sell it, and the value ultimately that is. The risk adjustment process sometimes, many times, it's not, it takes longer, right? So there is like the risk adjustment process that you get the monthly payments from a plan perspective, getting from CMS and probably pass it on to the provider, depending on the arrangement if they are capitated in that way. Uh, but what I wanted to add on is sometimes many times the risk adjustment process is over time, right? You're using it's retrospective, using or prospective, let me put it that way. But you're using old data to predict for how you are being paid. So and then there's overpayment, meaning coming in and reconciling if there are any RADV audit, which is risk adjustment data validation, they come back and audit. So you can actually sell the practice maybe at a point in time with whatever money or value you had, but you bought the practice, and maybe in the next year or two, when the risk adjustment validation, data validation process come to play, and they go back and look at it, as you're buying the practice, even if you don't have that understanding, I think it is a risk in that way, because you never know if over the next year or two, they'll come back to the practice from an OIG standpoint or CMS standpoint, looking back at the practice documents and saying, you got paid $100,000 here, but there's no documentation that is supporting it. Now you are being audited to return that money. So you thought you had bought a profitable practice, but over time, because you didn't do your due diligence in understanding these risk adjustment things and how that affected the revenue, you thought you had bought something of value. But give it 2 years, 3 years, when things have been reconciled retrospectively, you come back and you get a letter or something, OIG knocking at your door saying the practice owed some risk adjustment money, and then some money.
We have an issue. I'm going to have an issue. So you know what I'm doing with sustainability, right? And being concerned with socially responsible to help others so they don't perish. I think it's time for me to gather all the physicians in private practice and have this discussion with them, bring you in, have this discussion, because they will need to add value so that they can effectively and honestly transfer their business to someone else without them having the risk of doing this. As we're coming up for a few minutes, can you quickly share what is the software that you are in the process of constructing that will make all of our lives nice and easy?
I wish I could say all of our lives, but it's getting us somewhere. It's getting us somewhere. So we just started on the Heels Academy. As I said, the goal is to develop some simplicities in understanding, in implementing the Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment space here. So we have several videos on YouTube. So our YouTube channel, theheelsacademy.com. On YouTube, you search for the Heels Academy, HEALS Academy. There are resources, there are free resources that you can learn a lot about risk adjustment. You go to the Heels Academy website, join our email list because you don't want to miss anything that we send out. On the Heels Academy website as well, there is the RAS GPTs, the RAS GPT, and that is the cool tool that Winnie's talking about. And it brings many resources together, curate them together so that it saves you time, efficiency in navigating and finding risk adjustment resources. I like to save time because, you want to, as a provider or a practitioner there, you want to save time for your patient. So the Risk Adjustment Success GPT, which will be launching very soon. You go to the Heels Academy website, you can sign up to be part of the wait list, and you get a discount code. We'll send you a discount code as we launch this. So those are some of the ways, like on our website, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. You please follow, share, subscribe on YouTube, comment, reach out to me at info@theheelsacademy.com, and we can talk more on how best we can help you and your team better understand Medicare Advantage Risk Adjustment, because we want to make sure you are compensated fairly, accurately, completely, and timely. And
I'm going to make sure that we put this in the comment after this broadcast so that they can find you. And I'm just so excited that, being that you're so powerful and others are still struggling in this area and you've been able to help so many, this conference, RISE conference that's coming up, we found that you're one of the honored speakers to educate that population. And I guess we will let, in a couple of days, put that information out so people can read about that. Well, that being said, there's any questions? None at this point, but we're going to look forward to the questions later on in the comments, and we are definitely going to respond to you. And at that point, Dr. Baawuah, I want to thank you so much for your time, because you are very difficult to corner because of the schedule that you have. So I find it indeed a pleasure that you took this time out of your schedule to share this information.
Thank you so
And
much.
yes, and I want to thank all of my listeners, current and who will be listening to this in the future. Thank you so much for your attention to this matter. Share it with providers, and let us all, as patients, hold our providers accountable for getting the data in, so that they don't treat us terribly because we're not people.
That's a good ending.
Until, until such time, again, I will be ever so often interviewing good content, okay? People with good content in the coming weeks ahead. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being with us today. Bye
Thank
now.
you. I appreciate you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.